Good morning. I thank you all for joining on a short notice. I'm very happy to introduce today Mr. Nikhil Pawan Kalyan. He is a 2012 batch IAS officer of Orissa cadre. Before joining civil services in 2012, he had 7 years of software industry experience, and some of you might match with him in terms of he studied in NIT Jaipur. I mean, anybody from there? NIT Jaipur. Maybe in the online somebody might be there. And as far as his current posting is concerned, he is now working as a collector of Sundargarh district. Before that, in the beginning of his career, he was a sub-collector at two different places, Berhampur and Tizlaghar. He was also a PD, DRDO in Keonjhar district, and then of course he was a commissioner of Berhampur Municipal Corporation as well. So that is in brief about his about the postings that he had held in different capacities. Now today we are very happy to welcome him, and of course he had communicated only yesterday that he is available, and I am very, very thankful that you have all come to grace the occasion. Because he has an experience in tribal affairs, and because that is the hotbed of various tribal related issues, I had requested Mr. Kalyan to deal with that very particular area, which is of high relevance for your exam, whether you are from anthropology optional, or maybe perhaps sociology, or even for your general studies. It is of a great use to you, and I think you can feel free to ask questions, whatever, and take the maximum benefit of the talk.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Thanks, madam. Thanks for giving me a little bit time to interact with all of you. I don't know how much it will be helpful for you. I hope it will be helpful for you. Whatever experiences we have would be good to share. But the point is, it will be more helpful to me, I'm sure, because the kind of work we do, the kind of activities we take up, the kind of decision making that we come up with, we don't have time to look back. We don't have time to really analyze or assess, and we definitely don't have time to understand it in a theoretical perspective, sitting in a classroom or understanding why this happened or why this something didn't happen. So in a way, to be very frank, I am taking all of your time to help myself to understand what's going on there, cut off everything from there, come here, let me speak about it, discuss everything that we are doing. Maybe I'll get some insights, maybe I'll get some things which I might not be able to do rightly. So in a way, it's more of a very, very selfish reason that I'm here. So I hope you will all bear with me. So yeah, while we were discussing with madam also, we were looking at what kind of topics we should take. Then I realized she also wanted to have some specific points. Incidentally, I am also working on similar kind of scenario. So I'll give a background of the location that I am working in, so that you know what kind of situation. Then we'll come into the actual topic that we are currently in. All good so far, right? Thank you. So my district is called Sundargarh. It's on the northwestern region of Odisha, bordering Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and 50% or more than 50% is tribal population. Any idea which tribes are there, so that I can cross check my actual field with the textbook thing? Viror, okay. No, we don't have Virors. Anyway, please, anybody else? Just to know. I think we have Mundas, we have Oram, we have anybody else, or kuch? It is essentially that whole Chota Nagpur plateau, the East Singhbhum regions of Jharkhand. Who are there? Little bit, yes, there are little bit more into Jharkhand, but less into Odisha. But yes, the entire area has mainly Mundas and Orams who are there. So 50% tribal, 44% forest coverage. The entire district is covered, extremely forest cover is extreme. In fact, forest cover has been increasing. It's an increasing and interesting trend. 41 is what I have seen 2 years back. I've been working there, currently working also for 2 years. I joined in 19, 8 months before COVID. So that time when we had information collection, the coverage was 41%, so it increased to 44. One of the very rare scenarios where you actually have forest cover increased. So any other district that you can think of where forest cover has increased in the country? Telangana. No, I'm talking of district. Okay, if you are saying the state's forest cover has increased in Telangana, that's very nice. Very, how much percent? 1%, maybe less. See, because every district, if a state's percentage has to increase, every district has to contribute. But it's a very good sign. I am happy if Telangana's coverage also has increased. So yeah, 44% is forest coverage. Then the district is extremely resourceful. Please imagine the district, how it looks. Extremely resourceful. On the west side, somebody, you can operate. Can you show the district's Odisha and district? Can you show on online? Hoga?
Yes, sir.
No, I don't know if I need time. Just open up some Google map or something, then I'll show you. Thank you. So there are 3 different parts of this district. The westmost we have coal reserves, extremely coal reserves. So we'll all discuss about this. We have MCL Mahanadi Coal Limited, the fields. NTPC has its coal fields, and it has captive mines. You know what is captive mines, and you know captive plants. Difference between captive and non-captive. Let me know if you want to know the answers. Let me know. So we have coal mines, huge coal mines. Then in the center of the district we have limestone. Limestone is for what industry? Cement. We have 2 very big cement industries, Dalmia Cements and JSW Cements. Extremely huge cement, one of the largest in the countries. Then on the rightmost part near to Jharkhand, we have iron. So we have iron ore. Again, huge number of companies, very big companies. We mostly export to China. So those of you who don't like us to discuss or deal with China, we are the major exporters to China, one of the major exporters to China. So we have iron ore, we have manganese, very little bits of other major minerals. So the entire district has humongous amount of resources. And so now you saw the dilemma, right? Border district, the district headquarter is around 500 kilometers from capital of Odisha, Bhubaneswar, around 500 kilometers. So very far from the headquarters, extremely resourceful, high forest growth, more than 50 to 60% tribal population. This is your core location which we are going to discuss. You understand the background, right? The kind of issues that you find in your textbooks. This is the prime, experimentation base for all these things. So we have huge industrialization vis-a-vis tribal issues. We have land alienation issues. Anyway, so this is the background. So now I will come to the actual land issues. First I will start with your Schedule 5 of the Constitution, Schedule 5 areas, right? So anybody has any idea this district is Schedule 5 or not? How many states have Schedule 5 areas? 10. See, I am 2012 year, I wrote exam in 11, so please don't depend on my remembrance of the thing. I'm just trying to be more interactive as far as possible. Anyway, I think 10 states have Schedule 5 areas, if I am not wrong. This district is also one of the Schedule 5 areas as per the Constitution. Schedule 10, Schedule 5 area. So after your 73rd and 74th amendment, Panchayati Raj institutions, right? Are the Panchayati Raj institutions applicable to schedule areas? Yes or no? No. So what is the, suppose on the day 92, 93, whenever this amendment happened, this is already a scheduled area at that time. So what would have happened 92, 93 May in this district? whether there will be Panchayati Raj institutions or not. No. After that what happened? So supposedly no. I will come to the practical part of it. So 93, 94 we are supposed to have Panchayati Raj institutions, the Gram Panchayats, right? The urban bodies, the ULBs and the Panchayat Samitis, Panchayat bodies were supposed to be formed. The constitution explicitly said no for Schedule 5 areas. None of the ULB and 73-74 amendment does not apply to scheduled areas. After that there was lot of uproar how to deal with the scheduled areas. There was no administrative setup. So then there was a committee that was formed. Any idea which committee? In 95, 96 there was a committee formed, Bhuria committee. Please note down, I think you should go and read it. It's nice to read. I hope it is within your purview of your syllabuses. Bhuria committee was formed to understand and come up with a plan. Okay, what should we do with the Schedule 5 areas, whether this urban whatever ULBs and Panchayati Raj institution should be applicable there or not. Then the committee has given its report. Then it has suggested for what is called PESA, PESA, right? Panchayat extension for scheduled areas. This has been, so essentially the committee has suggested a lot of things. As per the committee's suggestions, the government, the government of India has in the parliament enacted the, I think in 96 they have enacted this law, PESA, Panchayat Extension for Scheduled Areas Act 1996 or 95. As per this act, they said, yes, Panchayati Raj institutions will be extended to the scheduled areas. So every scheduled area will have a village Palle Sabha, it will also have a Gram Sabha. If at all by chance there is an urban area. So now I will come into the points of this PESA. It didn't mention anything about urban areas. So they assumed scheduled areas will not have urban areas. So there was no mention. You can cross check. I mean, I am telling very from the practical field point of view. I have not studied the textbooks in the last 3-4 years. As per my understanding, there was no mention of any urban areas in this PESA Act. Any idea scheduled areas can have urban areas or not? Have you heard of the city Rourkela? So it's in Sundargarh district. So it's a Schedule 5 district. Sundargarh has one of the prime corporations of the state, Rourkela. It has a steel plant, Rourkela steel plant. Anyway, my point is, so there was no mention of it. And the act says every panchayat, there should be as per your demarcations, delimitations, every district will have gram panchayats. Extreme powers were given, in fact more than what is given by the Panchayati Raj institutions for 73-74 for normal non-scheduled areas. More powers were given. In fact the powers were extremely strong. It is almost like self-rule for tribal areas. Why this was done is the Bhuria committee, when it went into the details, it realized the tribals have their own self-government before the British, and there were many other, Chota Nagpur has its own ecosystem, the Bihar Tenancy Acts used to be there, and all this, there were lot of, these areas have lot of kingdoms. In fact the Sundargarh district was an amalgamation of two kingdoms, Gangpur state and Bonai state. So two are merged into and formed a new district. Anyway, my point is there were lot of other ecosystems working in the place. Literally more or less it is a self-rule kind of a situation. So the act wants to recreate that self-rule and gave huge amount of powers to the panchayats. Right? This is the statutory situation currently. Now I will come to the practical part of it. What happens if you give huge amount of powers to the GPs in the act? Any guesses or any logical explanations of such kind of scenarios? Just a vague idea.
Exploitation and misuse of
Exploitation. Okay. By whom?
by
We are giving huge power to the panchayats. extreme, and the act gave extreme, more than what you get in a corporation like Hyderabad. We have given extreme, so everything you decide. So I will say water bodies, okay, water bodies, what to do, what not to do, you decide. Minor minerals, quarries, you decide, okay. Forest clearance, you decide. Land alienation, you decide. Please note this word land alienation, I want to discuss that. Land alienation, you decide. Land acquisition, you decide. Everything we have given it to the act has given it to the Pesa Panchayats, right? So they have made,
Administration and
everything I have given. So, yeah, so this is the status. Any last minute points, what happens when such thing, when such huge powers were given? Corruption, no, wait, corruption,
Misuse of the funds given to them.
okay, good, and
corporate entities and administration can misuse these powers in their favor because the tribal people are having low literacy rates.
Okay, agreed. I think valid. Any other points? Okay, you are talking in general exploitation of the scenario. More power means more this thing. So what happens, again I will try to come back with the explanation part. What is Panchayati Raj system? You are giving devolution of powers. What is the other D? I forgot. Devolution of power, functions, funding, whatever. 3 things, 4 things are devoluted from where? From the state government. State has been given from center, right? Center gave to state. State is supposed to give to the Panchayati Raj, right? Now I am saying instead of Panchayati Raj you have Pesa. The state is supposed to give extremely huge amount of power to the they won't give. So because the kind of points you are mentioning is the other side. I am talking of this side. State might not want to. No, I am just not saying ki it does not want and all. Please don't. It's been recorded. My point is might not want to, because the extreme amount of powers are being given to the panchayats. So every act will have rules. Rules are to be framed. So when the government of India has enacted this PESA Act, all states where the scheduled areas were there, they are supposed to make rules. So 10 states are supposed to make rules. How many states have made the rules? Any idea? I think 1 or 2 states have done. Rest of the 8 states have so far not done any rules for the PESA, right? So 96, so 25 years. So we are discussing in the 25th year of this thing. So we don't have PESA rules. So at the end of the day, PESA Act is not functional. So we don't have PESA panchayats. We don't have scheduled 5 panchayats in the district. So whatever I told in the last 15 minutes was the statutory part of it, but practically none of them are present. So in 1993 when I asked the first question, what happens immediately after the PRA institutes came? Everywhere the institutes came up. In the schedule 5 they are not supposed to come, but in most of the places they came. So you decide what is the scenario, because it's been recorded. I cannot really say. I am working also. So I am not going to give you any direct say ki this is correct, this is wrong, aisa hona chahiye, aisa nahi hua, it's, you know, not going to say, but you understand the scenario. PESA is not implemented. PESA is not currently in the field. So the actual PRA institutes are currently working in the Schedule 5 areas, right? So point number 1 for you to discuss, whether this is whether it is legally statutorily possible to have GPs, PRA institutes in Schedule 5 areas if when PESA is not in power, and 2, what happens to the other statutory points given under the PESA Act. So Article 243M, you remember that? What is Article 243M? You are new batches, sir. You don't have much idea. Anyway, Article 243M also discusses about the Panchayati Raj institutions and the ULBs, and specifically exempts Part 9 of the Constitution to the 5th Schedule 5 areas, if I am not wrong. So all these things are interrelated statutorily, right? So far so good. Any issue, any point, any queries so far? So what we are doing is we are giving more power to the panchayats. Yes, exploitation is definitely a possibility, but in fact it is giving extreme powers to the village. So when the village, suppose a company comes up and then they want land acquisition to be done, unless entire village says yes, you will not be able to do the acquisition of land, which is more power to the people. So the way you are saying exploitation and all will happen in any kind of system unless checks and balances are there. But I see less exploitation in the field, if at all paisa. But yes, development versus this issue will always be there, because if you are a GP and if you don't want any industries to come, as I said, my district has mines below. So unless I can use the mines, I will not be able to maybe industrialize or use the mines, and the panchayats have to have the gram sabhas to be done, and unless they are done, we will not be able to go ahead. So this dilemma will always be there. So it's like question number 2, whether such kind of enormous powers to be given to the panchayats in the current context or not. That's up to you to decide and discuss. Right? Any questions so far? Yeah, anything please? All good? Yeah. So this is the legal statutory aspect of it. In the meantime, see, 96 May this act has come up. In the meantime, there were many other acts. So let us specifically talk about the land issues. So majorly 2 landmark acts have come up in the meantime for the entire country, but obviously in the context of 5th schedule areas we will discuss. So one is the 2005 Act, FRA, Forest Rights Act, Settlement Act, right? The other one is the 2013 Act, LARR, Land Acquisition and Resettlement and Rehabilitation Act. You know all of these 2 acts fairly. Can anyone help me with FRA? What does FRA do? In general, in simple words, not the definitions. No idea. FRA? Forest produce. Forest produce will be given. Agreed, yes.
It recognizes the rights of tribals on
Correct. It recognizes the land rights of tribals, right? So there are 3 types of land rights that tribals will have when we do in the field. We do FRA pattas on a daily basis. In fact, today is September 2nd. August 31st, I am supposed to sign another 300 pattas of FRA. Anyway, so 3 types. Individual pattas, where an individual family is there. They have been for generations, 3 generations. If it is non-ST, non-ST. Other if ST, 1 generation. If they are there for a long time and they say this is my land, they will just say, when you go to the field, they will just say this is all my land. They won't have any kind of demarcations done at their time, right? So you are supposed to go there, understand their demand, requirement, and demarcate on the basis of their assumptions, right? So you demarcate the land, the forest department will come, the revenue will come, you identify this area is this person's, you will do whatever procedural aspects are there, then you will issue a patta. This is individual rights patta. Then you have community rights. As I said, the ecosystem of tribals are slightly more connected. They work as a community, so they do use the forest for forest produce on a community basis. So minor forest produce, any examples of forest produce, minor producers? Mohua. So honey is there, generally mostly known. Any other? Kendu, tamarind you said, turmeric. There are around 65 minor forest producers that we do in our own district. PESA Act says minor forest produce also Gram Sabha will do its own business, whatever, procurement and this thing. So it didn't happen. Anyway, so 65 minor forest producers are there. So people go in community and they say we are 40 people, the entire community, this entire area is what we use for our forest produce. So we have to demarcate that and we give community rights. We give community rights directly to the people, not even to the Gram Sabhas and people. The third is common infrastructure rights. General routine infrastructures, your roads, Anganwadis, anything that has to happen within the forest area. FRA is in forest areas, right? Is FRA applicable in non-forest areas? No. Okay, next question. Is FRA applicable in rural areas and urban areas? Rural areas, of course, yes. Urban? Urban? It is applicable in urban also. Because urban, there is no relation that urban areas cannot have forest area, is it so? So the definition of urban is very different, right? How does an urban definition of urban come up? Either it is because 25% say less than that is used for agriculture, your density of population is more, your population is this much. That is what your definition of urban. There is no equation or link between forest and an urban area. In fact, majority of our urban areas do have forest areas. Anyway, so nobody generally goes ahead and give forest rights in urban areas, but the Act allows us to do so. We give that. In Rourkela, we have given forest right pattas, individual rights for in urban areas as well. So we need forest rights for common infrastructure to build roads, to build other infrastructure. The FRA allows for 7 to 8 exempted buildings like Anganwadis, hospitals, schools, etc., where you can go ahead and give permission at the district level itself. Otherwise, it goes to the higher level, MOEF and all, for forest clearances. Anyway, so this is FRA. So why I am bringing FRA into the picture is, you have at one side PESA, you have FRA, which was not there 10 years back in 96. Now after 10 years you have FRA. How relevant will be your PESA rules when the FRA came into the picture? You have to assess, right? Because the PESA does not give any individual rights. PESA only says we will manage it. But at the second side, every person in the area can get a right, community right as well as common infrastructure as well as individual. So the relevance vis-a-vis these two acts have to be understood, and maybe you have to come up with a position in the current scenario whether PESA is still valid, whether we require it or not, whether FRA is still valid or not, or whether both are required or whether both of them are not required. These are all academic. I am not saying go and do it in my district. I will not be able to do everything on that side. So this is FRA. Clear? Any point regarding FRA versus PESA? Next. So similarly, next is LARR, Land Acquisition and Resettlement and Rehabilitation Act 2013. You know this has come into force, right? It has come into force in 2014 or 15. What kind of projects you take up in LARR Act? Any idea? Irrigation, yes. Yes, irrigation we do. Any other projects? Any other projects? That's all, only irrigation. I'll come to mining. Yes, mining also, but I'll tell what does it mean. Mining, yes. All kinds of projects. Okay, I'll tell again. There are three things. So mostly the LARR was meant for infrastructure projects. When I say infrastructure, it includes roads, it includes railways, it includes ports, it includes irrigation and other infrastructure, it includes airports, it includes everything NH, it includes all other acts as well, all other requirements for land acquisition as well, including mining. I'll again dissect each of them. For NH, there are two options. Either you go for LARR Act or you go for NHAI. There is an NHAI Act as well, right? National Highway Authorities of India Act, which allows for compensation as well. Again, you have to decide which one will be applicable and what is the story. So, whenever we do highway projects, the NH Act supersedes LARR. Again, see the connections. This is for the entire country. Again, you have to understand for Schedule 5 areas what will be applicable. Anyway, so NH we do for NHAI Act. Okay. For railways, we have Railway Act. So we are supposed to do acquisition under Railway Act, but I don't know. I mean, you have to tell me the statutory situation. as far as I understand, LARR Act supersedes Railway Act, so we currently are doing acquisition under LARR Act for railway projects. Or I don't know, man, you have to tell me. So every act has its own structure, every act has its own compensation mechanisms, and it has its own superseding and notwithstanding clauses which will say whether the other one will be applicable or not. Right? Again, always keep at the back of this loop PESA. Whether PESA has this notwithstanding clause or not. PESA also says Gram Sabha, PESA also says every project has to go for approval from the Gram Sabha. Right? And LARR Act also says the same. You go to Gram Sabha, you take the approval of Gram Sabha, and then you get the work done. PESA also says the same. But LARR is now, LARR rules are formed, all states have taken it, all 30 states, all union territories, it is applicable. I hope even in Jammu Kashmir also I think it's applicable. The current scenario I don't know. But yeah, so whether still PESA is relevant, we have to understand, because the points that were given, every project has to go to the Gram Sabha is applicable in here also. Whether the same kind of setup is there in NH, I don't think so. In Railway Act, I don't think so. Or in Railway Act, you can say go to Gram Sabha, take their approval and come back. So all these acts have implications and conditions which you can allow to get the land acquisition done. For ports, generally we are going directly through LARR Acts, whether it's airports or riverine ports or even major ports. Irrigation, yes, mostly we are doing through LARR Act. Your Andhra and Telangana has, our Andhra and Telangana has other acts as well, right? You know of those acts, not acts, I think there are rules. What is that? Land pooling. Am I like giving you more information? I thought you will be able to pick me up very fast. Land pooling you had, right? Land pooling, you know? No idea. We do land pooling, right? You don't know. Amravati was half land pooled, isn't it? I don't know. I have not seen the details of it. What is the difference between land pooling and Land Acquisition Act? Money.
Giving money to the land, depending upon the market or the
See, LARR Act also specifies you, I in fact wanted to have the book also, you can read that. It specifies you how to calculate compensation. See, that's why it's LARR. Previously, what was the name of the act? Land Acquisition Act 1984. They specifically included RR. So it is land acquisition and resettlement and rehabilitation. So when a patch of land is taken, you give compensation for the land, right? You also will give resettlement and rehabilitation package. So it's not about money. We'll say, okay, if your entire patch is taken up, we will rehabilitate you here, okay? And then we will give you 1 year's continuous, what you call, compensation, and there was one word, solatiums or things are there. We will give you solatiums. Then we will give you job. So there is an entire, for your every 18 plus year old person in your family. So we have divisions, project affected families, project displaced families, PDFs, PAFs. So there are categories, category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the land that they are going to lose, and the market value is calculated. They will get double the market value, 2 times into 2, then there will be 100% solatium. If they don't want job, there will be again 100% job equivalent. Everything will be calculated in LARR also, and then you will give that package to the person. And suppose if the land has some structure, you will be doing structure valuations. If it has a small coconut tree, you will do valuation of the tree also. Everything that's on the land will be evaluated and supposed to be compensation provided to the person who is going to be losing the land. So this is LARR. You now please go ahead and find out what is land pooling. So as I said, when Land Acquisition Act is there, why again some states, Gujarat has come up with land pooling, it is the first state to have come up with land pooling, and Andhra and Telangana also have come up with land pooling. So what is that? What is the statutory, what do you call, base of this land pooling? How far it is over and above, superseding, notwithstanding LARR, or is it the same thing? Is it the extension of it? You have to find out. Otherwise, I don't know. I have some idea, but I don't know, I wanted to focus more on the tribal part of it. This is one part. So yeah, coming to now, so I have told about NH Act. So what happens after LARR Act comes up, the package comes very nicely, and to be very frank, the package is very good. Whenever a person loses a land, whether we'll come to the rights and entitlements and whether we should really take the land or not, that's a different story. As long as he is okay with taking the land, the package that he is going to get is very good. So the NH Act never used to give such kind of compensations, though they generally now when they go with the acquisition through NH Act, they try to match the compensation given by the LARR Act, so that there is parity between two acts. Same thing with railways, they try to match the compensation given by LARR Act, but it is not statutorily required. As I said again, NH and our railways does not have R&R. They don't do rehabilitation and resettlement. They only do compensation. So always LARR is more package wise. It's a very good model. When it comes to mining, there are again different kinds of acts. You have heard of CBA, Coal Bearing Act, Coal Bearing Areas Act. So there is another act called Coal Bearing Areas Act, which defines and decides what kind of acquisition is supposed to be done in coal bearing areas. So when suppose there is a huge mine identified, we'll come to how to identify. When a huge mine is identified as a coal, it's a coal mine, when they identified it as a coal mine, then they have to go for acquisition, they go for Coal Bearing Act, then they will acquire the land under the act. Again same question, Coal Bearing Act versus vis-a-vis LARR Act. So as of now, we are acquiring so far through CBA only. I don't know the legal stand. I don't want to say this. I think you have to understand whether it is notwithstanding or whether it supersedes the LARR, and only Coal Bearing Act is applicable to all coal bearing areas irrespective of other acts. That is your lookout to find out what is the story. So this is for mining. So for the rest of the mining, iron and limestone, we are properly doing through LARR Act, because there were no other acts, luckily or unluckily, available or required for those. So we acquire for mines LARR Act through LARR Act, right? So this is the entire acquisition story. For mine specifically, there are two things. One is your mine, you have to dig the mine and do, go deep. So what what you get is first you have to have prospective license. So somebody through your satellite imagery and all your infrareds and all, they have their methods to do the geology surveys and all. For doing that also they need a prospective license to go to an area and find out whether they have a good mine or not. Once they do the prospective analysis or whatever, find out whether the mine is there, then they go for mining license, mining lease. So you get the mining lease for so many years, 40 years, 50 years, 99 years. I think currently it's 50 years. So the mining lease is given. Then you will go for land acquisition. You understand the difference? So what I am saying is, mine is not surface. Surface rights is LARR, surface rights is NHAI Act, surface rights is railway. It doesn't talk about anything below the surface. Mining lease, prospective licenses are below the surface. So when the government gives through auctioning prospective licenses for mines, essentially they are giving the lease for taking the mine out from below. The person has to still come up with a land acquisition for the surface. This we call surface rights. So any mine will have surface right and mining rights. So you will dig you will take the mine, you will do the prospecting, then you will get an auction, you will get it for 50 years, now it is 50 years, then depends on state also, then you get the mining lease, you will sign with the district, then they go for acquisition, then the entire thing has to follow the same procedure. So this is land acquisition, right? So you have FRA, land rights, you have land acquisition. Then the third is land alienation, the one I wanted you to kindly note down. So land alienation is, what is land alienation, any idea? What is land alienation? Any idea? Land alienation is of the land which is of government. So if there is a village, if there is a rural area or something, you will have private land, you will have government land, right? What other kinds of lands can be available? Only two types, government or private. Within the government there are many types of lands. There will be Anabadi, there will be Abadi land, there will be Gochar, there will be, you know all of this, the land revenue divisions. So Gochar is for what you call animals, for your grazing lands. Gochar is your grazing lands. There can be names different in different places. So my point is there will be leasable government land. If anybody wants to take the leasable government land, the respective state governments have to make revenue laws. So there will be land reforms acts, there will be land administration acts, there will be land classification acts, there will be land categorization, then what you call that, limitation acts. All kinds of acts will be done by respective state governments to ensure land is provided and used in the right format, right? So once the land reforms and all these acts are formed, we have anybody who wants the government land, we will sort of alienate the government land. So if you want to make a government school, you need to have the land. You need to make any government project, even for road and any other project, the land has to be alienated to the concerned department. If the irrigation department wants to make a big irrigation project, there might be in the entire project area, there might be little bit forest area, there might be little private area, there might be little bit government area. All three will be there. So for forest area, they will go for forest clearance. For private area, they will go for land acquisition. For government area, they will go for land alienation. And there might be individual forest right area, FRA area also. Then we will have to go for FRA Act. So I am trying to give you an idea of what kind of complexity is involved when you work for a simple project. Not a simple project, for a very important project. Because a patch of land, they want it here because the mine is below. I cannot say you don't do this, it's very tough, forest is there, lot of private land is there, like kindly do it here, because they can't do, the mine is here. When the mine is there, you have to do the corresponding plant also nearby, because you cannot have huge long distances for your plants because the costs are high. So we end up doing the mine and a very nearby area for the plant, and all these kind of lands will come into the picture. So so land alienation, so government will allocate land to the whoever wants it, whether it's government project. If a private person wants a project, they will have to apply to the government. Different governments will have different procedures. Generally your development corporations, industrial development boards, we have APISC, what is it? Industrial centers, all these people will be the nodal agencies generally to allocate land for government, from government to private this thing. So you have land alienation. There are land alienation again, because OLR acts and all these state level acts are there. They generally have who is the owner of the land? State. The state is the owner of the land, you know this, right? When I say state, it is the state government. It is very clearly mentioned in the constitution, the state government is the owner of the land. So the owner of the land will decide how to use my land, divide, give, alienate. All the land acts are being framed by respective state governments. Why I am saying all this is again relate with FRA, again relate with PESA. When PESA says all land is of panchayat, the state government says all land is mine, the constitution states all land is of state, you have to understand where it will be the balance. So this is where the confusion or the problem, the conflict comes in the field, where you have to understand and identify the differences and how to go about it. So these are the things I wanted to mention. So in the entire backdrop in the last whatever 40 minutes, I try to give a background of the entire scenario, how the whole entire thing should operate statutorily. Now it is up to us whether to do it through the statutory process in the right way, while considering the aspirations and entitlements of the people, right? When I said land acquisition requires Gram Sabha, and then when I said the state government is the owner of the government land, when the state government wants to give a patch of its own government land to a private entity by following legal procedures, do you think we should go to Gram Sabha? Yes. Why? No, I'm just saying, why? Why? Okay, assume that there is mine, assume that there is not mine. Let us take two cases. First of all, there is no mine, nothing, it's a blank area. But some company, suppose you want to make an industrial park like your high-tech cities only. It's a fallow, barren land, you break everything, make it clean, and then you build a big infrastructure for IT parks. State is the owner of the land, assuming that entire land is government land. Assume that, I don't know what's the land status. Whether we should go for such kind of cases may, if it is a scheduled area or otherwise, whether we should go for Gram Sabha or not.
Yes, yes.
Why?
It is environmental impact assessment. Whether it impacts those people.
Okay, so environmental impact assessment is one. Okay, next. Just let us note out, because we can go for more. Any other reason why should we go or why we should not go? 1 minute,
Tell about the positives, what
If an industry is
So you essentially telling about them about the project.
yes,
What is the project? What does
how
it
it is
take?
helpful.
And the entire story about the project they should know.
Yes.
So you are talking about information. They should not do anything without the knowledge of the people.
Yes.
Yours? You are saying something?
The relocation and rehabilitation.
No, I am talking of government land. As I said, assuming that it is government land, assuming that there is no mine, so then should we go for Gram Sabha? Yes, for if you are taking their land, obviously I'll ask, why are you taking my land? Tell me the details. So that LARR covers, right? Government land. Any other point? Yeah.
Basically, they will have certain sacredness attached to that particular place. So people should be informed of what is going to happen, because they won't be able to resettle, or they will not agree to the resettlement or rehabilitation.
No, I am not talking of resettlement and rehabilitation. This is government land.
Even to the, I mean, like, even to acquire.
I am not acquiring. This is government land. See, that's why please understand the difference. It's a government patch of land. It's a government patch.
But the acts are under statutory code. But those acts are under statutory code.
Saturation. Acts are more important than?
Government permission. Because they are.
Okay, I will tell you the more easy. Okay, I agree. I am not denying none of the. I will discuss every point. My point is the owner is clear. It's a state government. You are the owner of the land. State government is owner of the land. I want to build some IT park there. Then, I mean, what permission again you require in your, what is the question exactly you mentioned? What the permission of that land? There is no land acquisition, government patch of land.
Though it is government land, sir, land is just a commodity. But apart from that, there can be many social aspects which are related to that land. For example, like in Niyamgiri we had that problem. So it can be the deities could be reside in that area. So it can.
So you mean to say that for government lands also you have to go to the Gram Sabha? Okay, good. If it is mine, definitely. If for non-mine itself we have decided that it has to go to the Gram Sabha.
Sir, accountability. Accountability to the people.
Accountability to the people. So then what will, okay, agreed. All of these points are valid, no problem. Then what will be government be able to do? You want infrastructure also. If I have discussed the entire 40 minutes in different way ki development nahi ho raha hai, you know, we need lot of infrastructure, we need schools. Okay, coming to simple thing. Government wants to build a water supply project. ठीक है? Simple water supply. everybody is informed. ठीक है, there is a river going, you want to lift the water from river or the below the river, and then you want to give pipelines to all the villages within that area. The entire thing is government patch. River is government, right? The embankment is government. There is nobody's rights on rivers. Okay. No environmental impact. It's a water supply project. No pollution, nothing, right? Accountability. सबको बुलाएंगे. No, we will call everybody. We will tell them कि भाई, please, this is a water supply project. This many houses will get water supply, pipe water supply. We'll do treatment. We'll do all these things. We'll do. Accountability is done. Nobody's land is taken. Whether people should whether government should go to the Gram Sabha in this case also or not. And if they, assuming that your consensus is that yes, they have to go, what if the people reject? We don't want any water supply project.
Asa prevails over the state. Asa will prevails over the state.
Which one prevails over the state?
The Gram Sabha powers.
PESA is supposed should have been prevailing over the state. Yes, PESA has statutorily powers to prevail over the state. But yes, as I said, no state has made any rules, and after so many acts have come later on, the statutory situation vis-a-vis PESA is very, very confusing. Somebody has to clarify it. When I said somebody, there has to be clear-cut rules by the state governments or by the central government, or maybe a proper understanding, because the, as I said, the powers given were extremely enormous, but no clarity was given. Anyway, yeah, these are the questions to ponder. I will not say any reason that this should be happening, that should be happening, but I said, but the reason why I took the water supply project, we have in the district there is a 330 crore water supply project. We wanted to do it in the one of the villages. People have objected it. Till now the water supply project has not been happening. So if you do my last 2 years of score report card in my district, number of projects completed, number of projects pending, number of projects not started, my report card will look very bad. My point is, then you will feel that we are not working, we are not doing any works, government does not respond. My point is, what kind of checks and balances we should have. There was a school project, Kendri Vidyalaya. They wanted 10 acres of land, proper government land. The project didn't take off. You tell me. Huh?
What were the reasons given by the people?
It's their choice, Gram Sabha. We decide. We will not allow. We don't want school.
No, sir, if you want to know the reasons.
Huh?
They wanted to be employed in those projects.
No? It's a school. Okay, if I have said any industry, Dalmia Cements or suppose say cement factory, some XYZ cements, you can ask for employee. It's a proper Kendra. I'm telling you, it's a Kendra. It's in my phone also. I can show you the approvals. Anyway, my point is, it's a Kendri Vidyalaya. They are running in a dilapidated building on hire from some government dilapidated school. Finally, the Kendri Vidyalaya has approved for a new school campus. 10 acres were requested from the state government. We identified 10 acres government land, free from encroachment, free from forest, and then the people have objected it. Till now the school has not happened. You to decide. ठीक है? You are saying something?
If you come to know the reasons for objections.
Yes, agreed. See, I am talking of the legal. I am not saying I will not convince, I should go and do forcefully. I can do forcefully, I can go and sit with them and convince them. I am talking of the statutory aspect. Vis-a-vis PESA, do you think this is the right thing to do? No question, no comments from my side. You have to decide. You are going to write the exam, right? And if at all we clear most of you, you have to decide such kind of situations in the field again. I also wrote answers. I also wrote such kind of answers. Something ye hona chahiye, people power, all these things. And then we cleared the exam. And now I am facing this issue. Now help me out.
So what were the reasons that given like for objections?
Authority.
For water also?
Oh yes, my water. Acha, I am telling you.
According to
This is my water, don't do it. I am happy with whatever I have. Jal Jungle Jami, you heard this thing, no? Komaram movie also, the entire movie will be that only. Anyway, so my point is, it is my forest, my water, my land. Don't touch.
So we learn in anthropology about this
This-
NMS complex.
Yes.
It may be hurting their.
I am also an anthropology student. Yes.
That project would have been hurting one part of this NMS complex.
Agreed.
Therefore, they are.
Okay, what should I do? Agreed. I am not saying. I should not even. Agreed. They must be hurting. Arey, what will a Kendriya Vidyalaya hurt here? Tell me.
Is there any possibility to educate them?
Yes, it is there. It will be there. I will educate them. I will try to do 100 means. I will sit with them. I will discuss. I will say, sir, kar lo, ek school hai, baba. Karo, I will do. But whether we should do it or not. See, now I am telling about the practical part and the theoretical part. As I said, that's why I came here. Na? Theory says Gram Sabha is the topmost. Practically, अरे बाबू Gram Sabha is the topmost. जो भी करके उनको हाथ जोड़ पैर के पकड़ के, you get the things done. We get it done. So the school project has not started. Water supply project has started. I have to say. So I have tried to not say that. Point is whether the such kind of things should be thought over or not. These are all things to be thought about. When the policy is made, when there are some, you are saying about exploitation, corruption and all those things, na? Whether an administrative machinery can be given enormous amount of authority without coterminous responsibilities and coterminous machinery and capacity. You have given him a nuke button, yes or no, you press it, whatever it is, right? And you are telling him, now explain him what happens if you press it. I am telling, before giving him only, you tell, no, you get to better get it, set things right. Because you are giving him a very big, it's not a nuke, it's a simple thing. It protects them a lot, nothing to do. I gave you 2 examples of very good projects, school and water supply. It's very easy to say we need schools and water supply. When the project goes into a different kind of node, maybe we need them to have such kind of extreme power with them. But they cannot do anything with this power in the current scenario apart from saying yes or no, which is not correct. You understand? Information has to be given, there has to be a proper procedure, there should be voting or whatever, there should be compensation packages or some has to be happening. Otherwise, we will not be able to take up any projects. So, things to question. Most of the projects are having land acquisition issues because of this issue. But what I am mostly worried about is the land alienation. Because the government, the state is the owner of the land. Whether any Gram Sabha can override state's authority, whether it should do or not, is a question to ponder. Right? Panchayati Raj institutions are there, they don't take ownership of the land. Your ULBs are there, your GP Acts, they don't take ownership of the land. Because it is scheduled areas, there is a different scenario for scheduled areas because of the relation that you mentioned about Niyamgiri and other areas. Yes, there is a mountain, there was a DT, and people are supposed to respect the DT and they do their traditional cultural aspects. So it's a pahad, so it's a government land, and fortunately or unfortunately they have mine there. So government wanted to give that mine to, allot that mine to some company, and people have objected and it didn't go ahead. So essentially the power is with the people. If you want to use the power, they can definitely say, no, we don't want this project, nothing doing, we will want to stay, whatever, we continue to respect whatever we want to do, it is correct. What I am talking is the legal aspect. The statutory aspect, or which one should be there, is your question. Clear? Any questions again? So far. Giving and take means you give the DT, I will give you some other DT. No, it won't work. No. See, the DT and all are all, as you were saying, it's more of that cultural thing, the anthropology related aspects. they are attached to it. So if you want to take, then you have to take the land, you can take it, but whether people will be happy with it or not. So, you must have seen many highways, na? There will be good highway, suddenly there will be a curve like this, there must be some small temple in the center of it. Why do we do that? It did not be a fifth schedule district to have linkages. These are all issues are there. We go ahead with some things, we don't go ahead with few things. Wherever we don't go ahead with things, there is either people objecting to it, whether people understood their rights, they said yes, I know my rights, this is not supposed to happen, the Gram Sabha is entitled to do, please don't do. So we don't do. Maybe at some points people will agree, yes, we understand that this project is very beneficial to us and we will be able to lift ourselves up. People will agree. Otherwise, none of the development works that are happening here would have happened also. So I gave one example, I will give those 6-7 examples.
Why don't government go with the amendments?
Perfect point. So we have to go with the amendments, we have to go with the PESA rules. Either declare PESA rules, right, or amend the PESA Act in consultation with the NHA Act, LARR Act, all these acts, understand everything, decide which one is going to be the boss or situation ke hisab se, make clear cut. So that is the statutorily the right way to do. Okay. Now we will come totally to the private. So the statutory part is all done, theoretical part. Now we will only come to the practical aspect of it. As I said, I had coal. I was able to acquire land for coal. People have objected, we convinced, you are saying convincing some, we have done that. All women will come and sit in front, 300 women, we will go and say we do this, then they will say something. Then finally they will understand, some of them, most of them understands, then we go ahead with the acquisition. So we were able to successfully acquire for coal. For iron, there is more support to the acquisition because the entire area is mine and people have realized the value that they can get out of the mines, the jobs and the kind of area, the topography of the area demands, and then they understood it has been happening for long. So for me, acquiring an iron ore area is relatively easier, hopefully. I won't jinx myself going back. So, but the other areas, the limestone areas are slightly tough. Till now we are unable to do acquisition. Going on, work is going on, hopefully I will be able to acquire. Point is, it is tough because people are not happy with that area there. So we try to do checks and balances, we convince them. We do Gram Sabha, we don't take the land without following the rules. We do Gram Sabha, we convince them in the Gram Sabha, we do the environmental assessments, we do social impact assessment, we publish notification, we do structure valuations, and we try to convince, some of them get convinced, some of them does not, and we try to get the things done. So essentially the dilemma is always the same old dilemma, development versus land entitlements and tribal entitlements of their land. Both of them are important, both of them will never try to, they will always compete with each other, they will never come down, the competition will never end. We have to find a check and balance mechanism to get the whole entire thing done. As I said, because the background I have given, the same place where mines will be there, there will be forest. The same place where mines and forests are there, there will be tribals. The same three, when they are there, they are far from the headquarter. The same four places, there will be movements like Naxals and Patharghadi movements. So this is the crux of the problem. That's why I started from there only. The first one I told is know where, which district I am talking. All these four will go together. You will not, if you are in the field tomorrow, if you have a company acquisition, there will be tribals, there will be Gram Sabha, there will be opposition, there will be, you might not be having scheduled areas everywhere, but this is the toughest combination that you can ever find. All kinds of issues are there here. So we try to segregate issues, we understand. So first of all, when we work in the field, our knowledge about the acts is extremely important. we should understand which one is what is the current scenario. Then we explain them a lot. We need to know exactly what's the power of each of the act. It's not about understanding the act means this clause has this one, this clause has some other point. Understanding the strength and the spirit of the act is most important. So when NH may, if they get low compensation, when LARR may, when they get more compensation, we as a district administration go there and we will try to resolve this issue by having our authority, by having our moral aspect in the district to compensate in the right highest value. So that is where our role comes in. We can ensure that the people at the end of the day, if they agree, they will be able to provide very high compensation, maximum as possible as per the act is provided. There are discretionary aspects where the district administration can go beyond a certain level as well and then allow for compensation beyond a certain level. So our role comes in there and then we try to have these balances made for proper acquisition. So there will be issues like in acquisition, there will be issues like a project started in 2015. I'm just giving a case study kind of things, just not the bigger story. The project completed in 2020. No, the land acquisition completed in 20. It takes 3-4 years. It's not just like 6-7 months. So within 5 years, you will say 2015 May my notification has come. Everything is statutory. So 2015 May, suppose there is a person, you are 16-year-old. You are a minor. By 2021, in 5 years, you will have become a major. Whether you will give him, whether you will count him as a separate family or not. Okay, then your LARR and other acts says a married woman is not part of the family. Okay. So if a 2016 May, if a lady is married, she is not counted as a, if she comes back, suppose say marriage didn't go through, she comes back as a single mother in 21, whether she will be counted or not. Or somebody is married in between this 2015 to 2018, because if she is not married in 2015, she is counted in the family. In 2018, suppose she got married and she is now out of the family. In 2021, whether you count her in the family or not. These are the kind of issues we face on a daily basis. Now you tell me, I want to hear to your views also. First question, that one, minor to major, yes or no? Yes. Married to single, unfortunately, yes, no. Unmarried to married, huh? Okay, so think about it in terms of the project also, not always only about the benefit and benefit to the people, and they should be nice, they should be all taken because we are taking their land. That moral aspect is always there. Think about the delay of the projects, think about the cost to the companies, think about the cost to the economy and the government as well, right? There is a very famous project, ultra mega power projects, heard of it? No, ultra mega power projects. 2013-14 there was a plan for ultra mega power projects across the country. Around 8 or 9 are supposed to come up, right? So the concept of ultra mega power project, the word is wherever all the resources are there, they will make a huge structure, mega power project, and that can provide electricity to 7 or 8 states or maybe more. So all these states will come up together, they contribute funds to put a power plant in another state, whatever one of these states. They contribute the entire fund, then the host state is supposed to do the entire project, land acquisition se leke everything they are supposed to do and complete the project. I think out of the 8 or 9 ultra mega power, only one has completed, if I am not wrong, or even I don't know. Rest 8 have not moved ahead. In my district, I have, I don't know, 2,700 acres acquired, completion, acquired, done for ultra mega power projects. The project has not gone through, right? Now what happens to this 2,700 acres?
Go back to the people.
It shall go, okay, it shall, whether it should or not, it should go back to the people. Any other point? That would be loss to whom? The people have already taken their packages. They have gone. They have taken their compensation. The land acquisition procedure is complete. Assume it's not the case in the field, but assume that it's complete. Huh?
The one who acquired.
The one who acquired.
Because already the compensation is done.
Yeah, you are saying something. Somebody else saying with the government. Okay, only 3-4 options are there. Any other point? Yes.
It is with the government.
So there are 3 things: either return it back to the people, or whoever has acquired it, keep it with them, or give it back to the government. What does the Act say? LARR Act says the entire land will be with the government. The Act says. Whether it should be done or not is a different thing. People on a daily basis come to us, on a daily basis come to our offices and ask, give us our land back. Right? Or they say, okay, don't give us our land back, get the project done. Because you already acquired, we feel very sad to do it. So the entire patch is vacant. Okay. Government also proactively tries to do. My government, in fact Odisha government is extremely good. I will come to the Odisha government after telling so much for so long. I have to mention about the government. Anyway, so let me tell right now. The Odisha government is extremely good. It's ready to do whatever the people want. It's ready to, as per the legality, statutory aspects, either it is possible to take up this project or take up another project, because statutorily the land is with the government, right? And this project doesn't look, so it has, I have been the part of those meetings. It has called all state governments, it called all 9 governments. We are discussing the future prospect of this project. The discussions are going on, we cannot comment. Point is, they are doing their best to resolve the issue, whether either let's go ahead with the project, finish it up and let the plant come, or if it does not, let us decide ki ye nahi hoga, then we can think of the next steps. Similarly, even in the LARR, NH Acts and the PESA Act, the government is extremely good. I am telling it not as a bureaucrat also, I am telling it as a person as well. It has been extremely people friendly. We have never used force in the entire 9 years I have worked in the field. We were able to acquire land wherever it is possible. Wherever it is not possible, wherever people never wanted, we said, okay, let's not take. We should not use force. Now, as I said, that's what I am saying. We will try to convince the people. See, as I said, statutorily PESA is not there. If there is a government land, Niyamgiri, government can go ahead and take. As I said, statutorily, state is the owner of the land. It need not have anybody's permission. It has its own authority. It doesn't do that. State government, we have lost huge investments or whatever, that is a POXO has come and gone. But we were able to show them other avenues. Again, POXO is coming, Vedanta has come. Vedanta, I think it's Vedanta. Vedanta has taken a mining lease in Sundargarh now. So anyway, my point is, state government is extremely good in this thing. It understands the moral aspects, it understands the limitations of the act, it understands also the aspirations of the people. It says, paisa nahi hai, hum kuch bhi kar sakte, you don't do. It understands, it will go, I will do Gram Sabha succeed hoga, then only I will go ahead. Wherever we were able to do, we will try to convince the people, do the assessments, understand. Wherever people object, we will go back, reorganize ourselves. If there is any alternative, we will propose. Starting from a small project like Anganwadis to as big as projects like airports, we do the same procedure. And excellent administration. I mean, Odisha government is beyond excellent in this regard. I mean, it's a cadre to be working in, extremely purely administrative power, authority given, extreme support, and we were able to deliver a lot of things also. Because of that extreme support, the discretion that we have, we were able to convince people, we were able to wherever possible extend beyond and go beyond and go help them for compensation and other packages, involve them in every step of the procedure and get it done. Anyway, coming back to that. So yeah, thanks to Odisha government in this regard. I wanted to always say that. In this UMPP again, so statutorily the land is supposed to go back to the people. It doesn't happen. As of now, it will go only to the government. The problem is now this entire 2000 acre patch, I am not able to take up any projects. The entire acquisition is done in 16 for 5 years. You have Swachh Bharat. I am supposed to build toilets. In this 2000 acre patch, I can't build toilets. In this 2000 acre patch, I can't take irrigation projects, roads, housing, nothing, because it's not people's project. Now, you have paddy procurement. People grow paddy, you procure them for your PDS. I cannot procure paddy from these people because it is not their land. After land acquisition, the entire land is recorded in the name of the government or in the name of the company, the special purpose vehicle that has been made. So now the entire ownership of the land is lost from the people. So they are essentially encroachers as long as you are not removed from that location. So they cannot, so till 2016 they were able to sell paddy, now they can't. So these are the dilemmas that we generally see in the field. We try to resolve them. We request the government again, let's allow for paddy procurement. We will request the government, let's allow for whatever toilets or construction. If they want, if the project actually comes up, we'll again reassess the valuation and then get them break. But yes, please remember the cost of the project increases. It is there, but somewhere you have to find. I'm not saying this is the right solution. I'm saying we try to find solutions. We have to find solutions one way or the other. As long as you are all in the field, you have to find solutions. You cannot keep things pending. Find solutions and get a reasonable thing. The act might in spirit help you, it might not help you theoretically or practically always. So you have to go beyond within the statutory limitations, take risks probably at times, and maybe decide. Actually, decision making is extremely important. So we do all these things and then try to get on some of the issues. Some things go successfully, some things does not go. So these are the issues. Have you heard of NCLT, National Company? You know that, right? So that also has a role in this entire thing. It's an interesting complex. A company is there. You have acquired the land. You have done. The company has run for 5-6 years. Suddenly the company is in a bad shape. They are just about to default. Then they must have taken hundreds and thousands of crores of loans. So the bank goes to the NCLT. This company has taken so much loan from us. Now the company is not in a position, so please help us. The bank generally approaches the NCLT, or sometimes the company also approaches the NCLT. Sometimes then the NCLT has its own procedure to assess the value of the company, current assessment, put it for auction, ask in the auction somebody gets the company, somebody buys the company. With the money that came up, they will try to remove all the defaulting thing of the banks, of the people, everything, and then the new supposed company is supposed to start functioning. We come in between this picture. So the administration always comes when things are in trouble. When everything is going good, we don't need to come in. So when NCLT hands over the company or the mines or everything to the new person comes to us, sir, हमको NCLT का order था हमारे पास. We are now the rightful owners, but people are not allowing, or something. So there will be some 20 issues. Why people are not allowing? Because they will hold the old fellow, because they will have lot of land related issues. When the company completes also, there will be land issues continuously present. It's not like there will be a simple clean mirror or a simple curtain and everything done, land acquisition done, company starts and everything is smooth. Everything goes like this. So even at 20 year, I'll come to that. I have to tell that I'll not 20 years. Anyway, point is, so the people will feel that the old guy will run away without clearing our dues, and then they will not allow the new guy to function. So we have to be there in between to understand the assets. The banking, why I mentioned about this point is the banking sector and the company's asset sector is also very important to understand the entire scenario, because for land acquisition, for companies, for the mining leases for 50 years, you need money, you need funding, and mostly it is done by the banks. Everything is good as long as the banks are in good spirits. The moment something goes wrong, the banks will be the first ones to shoot the thing, and everything else goes down. I mean, there are many liabilities of the company. The top is always the bank. So once the auctioning finishes, the bank is happy, they will go away. The rest of the liabilities continue, starting from employment, wages, starting from other payments and other issues, and acquisition and all those things. The next thing I will tell about 5-10 minutes is about, I will wind up if there is no other issue, is about Rourkela steel plant, because I mentioned about this 20 years thing. Rourkela steel plant came up somewhere in 1948 or 52, 53s, right? Just immediately after independence, thanks to the leaders that time. It came up wonderfully well. They took a huge township, they took a huge plant, they constructed a dam, they constructed an entire city, they have taken mines, so the mines are there, they'll take the iron ore, they'll do steel, they have water, they have a township, entire thing. They even made administrative structures to sustain the township. So there were officers, there was an ADM rank officer only specifically for Rourkela steel plant to take care of the land issues, acquisition and all. At that time, I think more than 5,000 people have been displaced. The entire tribal area has been displaced. So at that time there was no LARR, there was no PESA, nothing. It was simple Land Acquisition Act 1984, right? So with that act, I think they have done the acquisition. Then there were railways, so the railway took some land, there were many things. 75 years, 80 years, till now land acquisition is not complete. There were land issues even now, as I speak. There are many portions which are not in the name of Rourkela steel plant. Please don't quote all those things, these are all, I will be in a big trouble. Keep it to you, understand that, not to mention anything. There is no problem, again there was no mistake as such, it was like the time itself was so long, decades. Everybody has done their due diligence, but things have left out, and then 60-70 years is a huge time where you get 3-4 generations. So somebody, if the first generation person didn't get a job, after 4th generation if somebody says my first generation did not get a job, give me a job, what kind of justice will we be able to do to them? How many ever land you give, how much ever compensation you give, how much ever jobs you give, will it be possible to assume that the justice is delivered? We don't know. But as I said, the land acquisition, the land entire procedures of land, the alienation procedures are extremely cumbersome, are extremely tough, difficult, and everybody has to work continuously on a daily basis to understand it. First of all, understand the spirit of the act, understand the spirit of the laws and the government, what does it want, understand the vision of the government, whether it wants industrialization, whether it wants to make balances, understand the expectations of the people, understand the current dynamics, the economic status after COVID. You know what, after COVID, I mean, when I told about dynamics, I don't know about other districts, but my district never slept. Rourkela steel plant has supplied oxygen to 18 states. Any idea you have, by any chance you have heard of it? By any single chance? Steel plants generate oxygen. You have oxygen issues. We supplied oxygen to 18 states in the country, 18. It never slept. Iron ore exports were never stopped to China. during COVID. The entire machinery was down, right? The entire economy in the country was down. Coal never stopped production. You have electricity, right? It never stopped. Coal production never stopped. Cement production never stopped. Iron production never stopped. With COVID guidelines, we were able to do. This district never sleeps. My point is, we were able to, we should understand the situation. We should understand what is required for the infrastructure, for the development, for the economy, for the people, whether there are alternative aspects, and vis-a-vis checks and balances with the aspirations of the people. As I said, Rourkela steel plant has issues, but after that we never had any issues. We understood, we realized the problems. The systemic memory, the administrative memory is also very less. We work for 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. Somebody else comes, again the entire thing goes zero. Again he'll understand, yes 70 years से क्यों नहीं हुआ, it is impossible, पहले वो देखेगा, फिर after 2 months he'll हाँ कुछ problem है, then to understand it, it will take 2-3 months to discuss, again to come to a solution, by the time he'll again leave. So by this entire structure, it has gone to so much of a complex scenario. It gets very tough to manage unless we are ready to resolve the issues. We have to be very frank, take risks and go ahead and get it done. Anyway, my point is, so a land acquisition, if not taken care properly, can go for decades. That is the line I wanted to just mention. Yeah, anything else? I think I am fairly done. I think I have taken a lot of time of yours. Fairly done discussing the entire gamut of land, mining, tribals, forest, fifth schedule, the statutory aspects, the practical, reasonably practical aspects of it, and what we do and work. So, and little bit about my district also. If I have to add one more little bit about my district, we are very famous for hockey. Have you heard of hockey medals? I wanted to mention, nothing related to what we discussed so far. It's just a matter of pride. So Odisha government has supported the hockey team for 5 years. It extended for 5 more years. Out of the hockey teams, Odisha has given 2 male captains, 2 female captains. All 4 are from Sundargarh. The current team, men's team, has 2 players from Odisha. The women's team has 2 players from Odisha, 2 vice captains with them, all 4 from Sundargarh. All 4 from the entire hockey, what do you call, bedrock is the district. Extremely good players. We see hockey played on a weekly basis and a daily basis. People play for bets, you know. Sunday has come, they play, whoever wins will have to have a big chicken curry program, 200 chickens or whatever. So there is a name for that also, I forgot. They actually go for murgi actually. My point is, it's when we talk about tribal cultures and all, in your academics also, they don't talk sports. So that's why I wanted to mention. They always talk about Niyamgiri hills, they feel as if they are very, I don't know, they are very normal and only talk about these things, but they are very, very good at sports, extremely good at hockey, and we are trying to build infrastructure. So it has given a lot of hockey players. They have recently come, we have made a small program also. So please remember the district. What I want to say is, just have it at the back of your mind, because it has everything in it. It has everything from A to Z that I can think of, from best infrastructures to very tough conditions, from the forests to industries, you know, from exports to small mushroom culturing, from sports to everything we have. So it's a good district. So it's a very good case study for all of you to understand and see what goes on inside that. I think I'm fairly done. Thanks a lot for listening and giving me decent hearing. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I think I'm good to go.
What is the status of that project?
Which one?
Project has started.
Water supply project has started.
So if there is any rehabilitation or anything in any project?
Yes, every project will have rehabilitation. LARR is compulsory.
So what is the situation of trends?
See, as I was trying to say, it is more of the PESA. Yeah, I think that point I have to mention. has made it an ideology. So previously we have very, what do you call, very strong ideologies, either it's Maoism or Naxalism on one side, or very strong government machinery ki jaise bhi karke danda laga ke kaam karo. These are extremes. We are now in the center, and the ideology PESA has given about this, my jungle, my water, my land. The ideology is very strong. So they respond or react on ideology. So even if you say, so I need a water project, they don't think about the project at all. They say, this is my water, I am the authority, I will not give you. That's all. It's ideology. So you have to break the ideology. So the moment we will be able to break the ideology of the people of that area, we will have a breakthrough. As long as you don't do it, it's impossible. And because they are the final bosses, and Gram Sabha is the final authority. Unless Gram Sabha approves, we cannot go ahead. We should not go ahead as well. So if they are talking, if they are objecting or raising objection only on the merit of the project, then we are good to go. We can discuss. As long as they can show, I can do presentations, we can convince the people. But if it is an ideological thought process, it's not always easy. So yeah, so for water project, we were able to break the ideology. Finally, we were able to convince. For school, not yet, but we are confident we will be able to do. For others, it will be done once in a while. So yeah, it's in process. It's in work. Maybe a few days after some time, you might get it in news also. Hopefully, you'll get it in news in a good way. Any other issue?
Sir, if the ideology breaks for a certain period of time, then after they got realized it.
Yes.
They got realized and they want the same thing back, or whatever the complexes with their relatives.
From no to yes is easier. First they said no. You again kept a Gram Sabha. You said yes. It's easy to go ahead. The project has delayed for 1 year. The moment you say yes, and then you want to go back and say no, it's slightly tough. Obviously, right? It's very tough because you have an approved Gram Sabha. It is legally binding. So again the legal part of it comes up. People will go to courts and they say there is a Gram Sabha approval. They said yes. So it's very tough to go back.
So eventually they are assimilated, sir. I mean their traits and all got assimilated.
So there are two things. The ideology I am talking is not about the way they live. It's about the ideology of the authority of the thing. The PESA thing ideology is about this is my land, my forest, and my. Even though he is a hockey player, even though he is a person who works in steel plant, the ideology remains the same. You are talking of the people who are still dependent on the village, dependent on the forest. Yes, for them we should not. For them, ideally we should not touch if they don't want, even if there are mines. Yes, right? I mean, is it okay with the answer that I gave? So you are talking about their life, their lifestyle, or the way of living is disturbed. Yes.
Situations or post situations are adapted to them.
Yes.
Are they being adjusted or without any way they are being adjusted?
Not ideally. See, point is, it is never ideal. You cannot really recreate the entire thing, the way of living, the way they used to live. People slowly come forward. So when you say tribals, I don't know how you imagine it, but when you see them, you will feel they are extremely good people. They have very basic understanding, very commonsensical basic, and please don't misunderstand me. They have extremely high wisdom, I would say. They are like beyond the material world. Okay? So if you go and tell that you need this land, I need this land, and if they are okay to leave the land. They are not attached materially to any of it. But they should have their basic thing understood, whether it is beyond their tribal cultural aspects, they won't allow. If the community does not want to do it, if they feel they will be disturbed as a community, not as an individual, please mind, they will not allow, they will not want it. Not allow is a big word. They won't want it. They can sustain their way of living anywhere. They are very strong people. They work for 18 hours. They go and sleep, they don't have any issues. They are extremely hardworking people, I have seen. They have their own dialects, still they try to talk with, the language is Odia of the state, but they have different dialects. We cannot talk in their language, but they try very hard to talk nicely in Odia, and then they respond. They treat you very well. So their the genuineness of the way of living is perfect. There is no doubt about it, but they are extremely flexible. Please don't keep this in mind that they never want us, they never want any of this. It's not the case. It's the ideological breakthrough that you have to do. If the ideology is only because of PESA, ki PESA has given you authority, it is your water, you don't allow anybody, that is where the problem comes in. If it is the ideology of way of living, they are extremely flexible. And they are ready to listen to you, they are ready to decide, and they will decide yes or no, up to them. I can only generalize it, but as I said, this is one district where you can find, the image of the entire country, because I have the entire tribals that you read in your textbooks, the entire mining that you read in the textbook, the entire acts are applicable. So yes, I assume, but there will be differences for different places. I am very sure, as I said, land pooling will never work in Odisha, theoretically. Why I am saying this in the last minute is, land pooling concept is not a way of living. It's more of, you should know first of all what is land pooling. It's more of a voluntary business. It's voluntary. LARR says this much, they said don't go into the act, I will voluntarily give my land, I don't want LARR also. You assume you give me more compensation. So it's voluntary. It will never work in tribal areas. So why I am saying all this is, there are places in India where land pooling is done in tribal areas also. So it is voluntary. So it might not be the case in the entire country. Northeast has different dynamics. The resource richness makes it all different. Resource richness of a simple area makes the project more viable, makes the project more required, because as I said, I need to mine it. If I have to mine it, there is no option. Industry, I can still put it elsewhere. Ultra mega power project, I can put at least elsewhere if it never works, but mine I have to. So the Chota Nagpur plateau, yes, it's all the same. That entire patch of plateau is more or less similar. I get more people from Jharkhand, in fact. Anyway, any other issue?
Sir, as we can see, there is a conflict or confusion between the acts.
Yes.
There is a PESA or LLRA.
Yes.
So do we have any ruling from Supreme Court or High Court?
Oh yes, valid point. I think Supreme Court said the exact same thing, that it has directed the government of India to relook at PESA. Very well, valid point, because it said now if FRAs and LARRs are there, the same thing. So I will share you the links. I have seen some links also. Yes, Supreme Court has directed, not given any order. In fact, respect to Supreme Court is also mostly logical, right? Other than that investigative and evidence-based cases, the rest of the constitutional related aspects are all logical. You only tell me, okay, Supreme Court can have its own wisdom. You tell me what should be the scenario. Things have changed. 96, there was a huge moral strength that yes, we have to give more powers to the tribals. They just gave, okay, you are now powerful. This left it there. They have not defined the powers. They have not given anything else, and then the power has become an ideology. There should have been a more structured authority devolution, more standardized thing, more simple things with checks and balances. Then it would have actually worked. But in the current scenario, I don't know. You have to decide at your level. At this moment, it is a problem. Right? Anything else? Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. I hope it was helpful. At least it was helpful for me to give a overall perspective.
We should say thank you for your valuable inputs. These we call savvy sessions actually, meaning that whatever you are learning theoretically, we try to top it up with the experience of the officer on the field. And I hope you would take the benefit of this session and several other sessions to come in the future, so that you can add them as examples and case studies in your, that's the final objective. And Sir was also saying a little while ago before your session that the personality of the students has also been changing across time, for every 5 years the generations change, of course. Maybe in one other session we would try to incorporate these ideas in the class with several other officers also, that what should be the qualities that you should be having, so that you are properly in the public service, kind of. So I thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.